presenting your host for the Racecoin podcast, Jay.
Hi guys, welcome to the Racecoin podcast again. I'm your host Jay, and I'd like to welcome Joao Barbosa, the Portuguese driver living the American dream. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show, Jay. It's awesome to be here.
So, talk me through it. How did you get started into racing?
Well, I started racing when I was 12 years old in Portugal in go-karts. At the time, there was the minimum age to start racing, so there was no like these cadet go-karts that there are now that you can like start driving when you're 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
So it's I even think it's a little too soon, but it's like I started racing when I was 12. I started driving go-karts. I had the first opportunity when I was 11. Then my dad took me to a go-kart track and just to a rental and just to try it out. And they had like a small go-kart, but it was kind of like with big tires. It was kind of a weird go-kart. But I did my first laps there and it was awesome.
Nice.
Since then, I just kept bugging my dad to take me there again and to drive. And he finally said, if you have good grades by Christmas, then we'll see what we can do. Maybe we get you a go-kart or something. So I worked really hard by then, and I got my first go-kart to start racing.
Nice. And when was that? What was the year?
That was back in 1987. That was a long time ago.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a while.
A lot of people, obviously, when they go through this, it's a transition of, where does the money come from? Where do you get that initial funding? How did it work out for you?
Well, I mean, I was pretty blessed. My dad was able to buy me the first go-kart and start, giving me the opportunity to race. So I was very blessed with that. There's not a lot of people that are able to do that, but at the time, I mean, obviously the costs were very different from what they are now.
Yeah, of course.
Skyrocketed quite a bit, and we start slowly, obviously, and my idea was not to be like the professional go-kart. I just went there to have fun for a little bit, and it's just. My dad was a big supporter. At the time, he loved racing. My mom loved racing as well. So I had an uncle that used to drive go-karts, and he kind of raced a little bit, only amateur level. So, racing has been a big passion for the family since the beginning.
So it's in your blood. It's just been coursing through your veins since the start.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it actually started before that. My mom, actually, when she was pregnant with me, they used to do like on the weekends, like autocross races. And from what I heard, she was doing that with me on her belly a couple of times. So
wow.
I started like going around cones and spinning when I was still inside my mom's stuff. So it was pretty cool.
That's a crazy story, definitely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've been doing it for so many years. You've started in 1980s to now 2019 we're in right now. How has your mindset changed across time? Obviously you've had a lot more experience, so much more races under your belt, so many more championships under your belt, so many more wins under your belt. Where has that now led you to the way you think about a race when you approach it now?
I mean, obviously it's very different. When you start racing, you have one goal. I mean, growing up in Portugal and racing in Europe all the time, you had the goal to go to Formula One. It's like, I want to be a Formula One. I grew up watching Ayrton Senna racing. I was a big fan of Ayrton, and, I want to be a Formula One driver. It was a big goal at the time. Portugal is a very small country. At the time, there was not a lot of drivers coming out to Formula One. Very limited possibilities regarding sponsorship and all that. So it was pretty difficult. I did a good. I think I did a good racing career until that point, and it got to the point that I didn't have the funding or opportunities to follow Formula One, and then I just tried to think what I'm gonna do next. I want to be a race car driver. Or if I'm not going to Formula One, or if I don't make it, I'll stop.
So you mentioned sponsorships were a lot harder back then. Do you feel like they're easier now than before? Or do you feel like there's more people coming into the sport and obviously a lot more competition for that sponsorship, even though there is more of it?
Yeah, well, it's very difficult still nowadays to get sponsorship. But Portugal being a smaller country, then the sponsorship opportunities were even less. It's I think now the mine is a little more open, but still very tough. It's to have companies to invest in a driver in Formula One. It's not like you can invest in a driver that's just about to step out into Formula One. You have to invest you have to kind of gamble and invest in a kid that's starting the go-karts now, and hopefully he'll make it to Formula One. It's not like you can just get there and I'm going to Formula One next year. I need $10 million.
Yeah, exactly.
It's things have changed quite a bit, but I was able to realize that that's what I wanted to do, and I focus all my effort and to try and pursue a race car driver career. Since the beginnings, I knew I had no chance to secure a ride in Formula One. I did test with Minardi at the end of '96, and it was an awesome test. So I got that great opportunity. But after that, I just wanted to keep driving and racing. So I had to look for other opportunities.
Obviously, in motorsport, it's a team game, right? But a lot of people just see you on the front line doing your thing and being in the zone driving, but they don't actually get to know what the full process is. So for those who don't actually know what goes on behind the scenes, can you describe some of the events, some of the things that take place, what kind of things you actually do as a team to prepare?
Oh wow, I was just at the shop yesterday, especially we have a big race, the 24 hours of Daytona coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's obviously the drivers and the car, it's the face of what's going on, but behind that there's a lot of work and a lot of preparation that goes into, especially in endurance racing. I mean, it's one of the most demanding races in there's we have Speed there barking at the door, and it's definitely a team sport. You cannot depend on one driver to make it happen. And endurance racing, you still have to share the car with 2 or 3 other drivers. So everybody needs to be in the same page. Everybody needs to push the same direction. But behind the scenes, there's all the crew, the Cadillac people, the Action Express guys. They all working nonstop. There's no really off season. As soon as we finish the last race, we start preparing for Daytona, which it's coming up at the end of January.
So what does preparation look like? So, talk me through what kind of, how do you go about strategizing? How do you go about, working out who's going to be doing what? How does it all kind of mesh together to form this amazing team that you now represent?
It's talking about the car is like a Lego. As soon as the car comes to the shop, all the pieces come apart. The engine comes apart, all the little mechanical details, everything gets checked, everything gets prepared and completely disassembled. The car gets like into million pieces, literally. Just the top stays together. The rest, everybody's analyzing and making crash test checks, and everything needs to be top shape. So there's a lot of not a lot of people, but there's the crew is making sure that all the pieces are ready to go, and then they really start to assemble the car together with to all the minimal details that it takes, and spare parts, everything. We have like 2 or 3 parts of everything just in case something happens. So not only the team is thinking about what we need to put in the car, but it needs to think about what if. There's a lot of what ifs in the 24-hour race. So the team they can plan as much as you want. We're going to do this, but they need to be ready to attack what if this happens, So that's I think preparation, that's what it made Action Express such a great team in these endurance races since 2010. It's like the evolution that they've done in the preparation and in the what if this happens, just to be ready to the unexpected to happen.
Yeah, handle any situation.
Yeah, and the way they attack that, it's just brilliant. And I think they're the best in the business at that point. It's strategy and be ready to whatever it happens. They've been ready all the time.
So obviously unexpected things happen all the time, right? It's not like you can avoid it, but you can prepare for it. And what happens, I have two questions. One is on the aspect of a personal level. So what if you don't get along with a driver, or what if you don't get along with your manager and you're just having internal problems which are unresolvable? Like what happens in that scenario?
Well, it's never a scenario that you want to happen, but all the problems are dealt internally. You don't really see coming anything to the outside, because if we have an issue, we fix it on the inside. And the team has been very good in picking up not only the driver that obviously needs to be very fast, but that's a good team player. The team doesn't want any driver just because he's fast. He needs to be a team player. He needs to have the experience to, in this kind of races, to share the car and to know what his job and what his position is within the team. So we've been very fortunate. We've had great teammates. I had great teammates. I had a good team that support. No matter if we win or lose, we win together, we lose together. Obviously, there's good days and bad days, but the team has been able to manage all those situations very, very, very good. And being a team sport, you need to play well with your teammates. So the team always made sure that everybody has a great chemistry between each other. Obviously, the drivers are always competitive and they want to be fast, but we all know what the goal is, and we're all shooting for the same goal, which is to win the race.
Yeah, so that chemistry that you just spoke of, how do you go about creating that in the teams that it works so flawlessly on the track?
Well, it's not only about the track, but we always go to dinner or lunch together. We spend a lot of time together. We work out together. We go Daytona. We go to the gym, or we go to the beach, and we run. And we also, I mean, we have some fun together. Last year we went on a fishing trip all together and just create a little bit of more team bonding. And after the race, we're actually going to do a little more of that, getting all the team together and just have some fun and relax after such what will be a very stressful race. So it's also what happens on the outside that brings everybody together and make them have the same goal and the same passion to perform the job.
Of course. So you've had quite a long career, right? And I'm sure you must have faced your own personal hurdles over this journey in this period. So how did you go about overcoming those?
Well, it was never easy. Racing, it's a tough business. There's a lot of competition. I've been really lucky that I'm still racing. I mean, I got great opportunities, and you just have to make the best of the opportunities that you have. There was some years after I stopped racing in Europe, I was trying to race in the US, and I didn't really have a full-time ride. So I was doing driving here, driving there, and trying to get the most as possible of the opportunities I was given. And then finally, I was given the opportunity to drive with Brumos Racing full-time when Hurley Haywood decided to retire. So I took his place and drove with JC France for a few seasons, and they really gave me a great opportunity to show what I could do. And I believe I did the most of and the best possible of what I had at the time, and great years. And that gave me the opportunity to go to Action Express and be there since 2010, since the beginning, which is quite a long time to be with the same team. But it's always a struggle. It's a lot of sacrifices when you're younger and you're trying to make up a career from it. But it was well worth it for sure.
So you talking about sacrifices. Give me just one example of a sacrifice that people would not think that is even part of the game that you've had to make.
Well, when I first racing in US, I raced the first time in US in the Formula Atlantic in '97. So I didn't have a car. I was living with the team. So I was always traveling with the crew back and forth, driving everywhere for the races. And also in Italy, I was living above the shop of the team when I was in '95 when I raced there. So I was living above the shop. I would wake up, come and help the mechanics with the car, whatever I could do. So I was living there by myself and just spending time with them. And it was a good opportunity. And also when I came to US, I had very limited races to do. So I helped develop the Mosler MT900. So I was working at the shop full day to build the cars and to help them develop the cars, which, I mean, I don't really see it like sacrifices, but it's for me, it was all worth it, and it was all good experience. But, you know, definitely there was times that they were not as easy as they are now.
Yeah, and I think almost by being involved with everyone and kind of spending time developing the car and really understanding the nuts and bolts of it, you manage to actually have a better grip of the car itself almost, you know, because you feel a lot more homely inside something that you've built to create. So
yeah, it gives you
I
a
think
different
that
perspective and a different perspective on the car, and it just opens your mind to look at different things. So it's a great experience. I mean, one thing that people don't realize, like I started traveling when I was really young by myself to go to the go-kart races. I did the European or World Championships. So a lot of that, when you're growing up, when you're 13, 14, and you're like, you want to spend time with your friends, and when you're like 16, 18, you want to go out with your friends and go to the clubs and stuff like that. That's a lot of things that I didn't get to do because I was spending a lot of time outside. So I didn't get like that growing up, spending time with the friends and going out and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't really, I don't know if I miss it or not. I didn't get to experience that, but it was well worth it for sure.
yeah,
I
of course.
was committed to do what I wanted to do and forget about all the other stuff. So
I'm sure most people who have been doing things that are very normal can't say something like, I'm living my dream right now, right? So
yeah, exactly. So
there is
it
always,
was well worth it for sure.
yeah, of course. So now that you're in this stage of your career, where do you see the future for yourself and the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a good question. That's a good question. It's next. The next Rolex 24 is going to be Christian's Fittipaldi last race.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to stop racing and obviously he's going to pursue other opportunities. But it's a tough decision. Obviously, my career is not going to last forever, correct, driving. So I've been thinking about it, but right now I'm focusing 100% of the racing part. You know, it's always.
Let me just rephrase the question. I never said when are you retiring. I said what does the future look like, and all you've discussed is retirement so far.
Yeah, well, it's almost into that point, right? But it's I still believe that I can. I'm still competitive, and while I'm still competitive, I want to keep driving, of course. So I want to give the best I can to the team, and my goal would be to win a couple more Rolex 24. So I'm working really hard with the team, and working really hard on myself as well to be in the best possible shape as possible to try and go for more Rolex 24-hour wins. I think that would be very special. We have me and Christian now. We have 3 wins overall. So to be able to do a couple more would be like just to get up with legends like Hurley Wood and Scott Pruitt. So my goal, my short-term goal would be to win a couple more Rolex 24 hours. So we'll see if we can make that happen.
You mentioned stay in shape. How does that happen? What do you actually do to stay in shape and be on form when you're on the track?
Well, it's this Cadillac DPI and the new generation of the prototype cars are pretty demanding. They're cornering and then speeds are very high. So a lot of G-forces, and mentally also it's very important to be the best shape as possible. it's a non-stop year-round program. You cannot just stop and wait. Like, it's the race is gonna happen in 1 month. I'll give you 2 weeks and start working out. So it's an ongoing process. You know, I prefer to be outside, and I do a lot of stuff outside, biking and running, and some exercises that I do outside. And obviously I complement that with some gym. With a personal trainer to focus more on specific like neck and shoulders and other parts of the body that are require are demanding different efforts. So it's quite a process. I've been stepping up a lot this year during the winter. I had a terrible year last year with 2 injuries that took me out for 3 races. So I decided to have a more specific program to help get in shape a little faster, but everything is working out. I feel awesome. I feel that I'm as ready as I can be for a 24-hour race.
Nice. That's great to hear. And thank you for being on the show and sharing those stories, Joao. It's been an awesome experience to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me anytime, and hope everybody's going to watch the Rolex 24 at the end of January. It's going to be an awesome race.